Good evening, guys. I hope everyone's been having a great day. So I'm just going to get right into it. I stumbled across a video from this channel called Cherubim Church. And it's a video about a guy, a former pastor, and his interaction with a woman that he had 11 years ago. And he said it was a strange interaction that he had with the woman. And by the way, if you just want to skip over to the video, it's around the 2-minute mark. So, you can skip over to that if you don't want to listen to me talk for 2 minutes. But yeah, the conversation that he has in the video is almost a spitting image of what's happening today. He talks about MKUltra, he talks about the Bavarian Illuminati and the satanic regime that will take place, and how this woman, out of nowhere, just spills the beans on all of it, and how she was an insider in the Bavarian elite, in the Illuminati, and how she was an MKUltra trainer, and pretty much how they're going to bring about the New World Order with the coming invasion that I believe is happening soon. And in fact, some of the stuff that he talks about, not only is it happening right now, it corresponds with the video that a Kentucky pastor who goes by Pastor Dana, and he made a video about his prophetic dreams about the end times, the coming invasion, and the protests that are about to get really, really violent. So, yeah, I just really want you to watch this video, and I'm going to take a few minutes to comment on it. And I think when you watch the video, you'll see that he's genuine. He's not really doing it for views. I mean, he made this video about a year ago, and still nothing's come out on it. So, look, guys, here's the video. Take it for what it is. And, I mean, guys, things are about to get real.
Of the time I met an MKUltra trainer. So, I was a preacher at a pretty large church. A woman came to our church, wanted to get involved in the church. But a weird thing happened. The bishop in charge kind of snubbed her and wouldn't let her get involved in the church, which is kind of uncharacteristic for him. So I asked him about it. He was pretty cryptic about why, and he actually did tell me that it was because he felt like she had mental issues and he couldn't go into it. So I didn't think anything more of it. A couple weeks later, I was at a big seminar with a bunch of clergy. It was open to anyone who paid the fee to get into it, but it was primarily a clergy convention, a series of seminars, multiple day thing. So like on day one, I encountered this woman in the lobby. She came up to me and wanted to tell me why she was not part of our church and what had happened with her and the pastor. So I was curious and I gave her a listen. And the story that she told me was mind-boggling. It was beyond belief, and I could see totally why the pastor would think she was crazy. So I went ahead and gave her the time kind of out of morbid curiosity. And, at the end of this 4 hours I spent with this woman, I decided if she was crazy, she was the most special kind of crazy I'd ever seen. That her craziness was so detailed and in-depth that honestly it made me believe her story, even though it was totally unbelievable. And since then, I have stayed away from the topic of MKUltra because, and even the Illuminati and a lot of this stuff I don't delve too deeply into because it does sound so crazy. But let me just tell you, as best I can remember, the story this woman told me. So she claims to have been born in the Illuminati from a Illuminati Bavarian family who can trace their origins all the way back to the beginning of the Bavaria version of the Illuminati, which is the ones that are supposed to be, at the Grove and, supposed to be the Bilderbergers and all of this. So she claims that she had a relatively normal childhood, although she was raised mostly by other people because they were very wealthy, and that she had gone to, really off to parochial school or whatever, not parochial school, but private school, and that she didn't live at home and didn't know her parents much until she was 13. When she was 13, she was taken, she says, to Rome, where they walked through a series of catacombs under the city and hallways and passageways underground until they ended up in an Illuminati room, like a cathedral or a satanic church. And she claims that the Illuminati are Satanists, that this is all about Satanism. And what she described was a big, giant, round area with 13 thrones encircling this area. And the 13th throne was empty. The 12th throne is where the head Illuminati member sat, and the previous 11 thrones were occupied by the dead bodies of previous heads of the Illuminati. So he was, in her telling, she said that we were at the end of time, and that that this was the final. This Illuminati who was in charge now, head Illuminati guy, whatever the head guy. I can't remember what she called him. The master. She called him the master. That he was the last one before the final one who would become the Antichrist. He was going to sit in the empty 13th throne. So in this circle, she said, was a pentagram and candles, and she was laid on a ceremonial altar at the center of this. And then while everyone watched, this large group, including her family, she was raped by this, well, she gave herself willingly to this 12th master, who impregnated her with her first child in that ceremony, where she lost her virginity and was impregnated. She said that she had just started her period a few months earlier, and that's why they took her there, and that when they took her there, she was fertile. So she was inseminated by this guy in this ceremony, and that her son was very special because she was the son of the master, or he was the son of the master, rather. And she was chosen because she was of a pure bloodline that went back to royalty in Bavaria. So, flash forward, she's given an arranged marriage to a slightly older man. I think she was 13 or 14 when they got married. And I don't believe they were married in the States. They were married in another country. I think it may be Germany. At any rate, her and her husband were trained and had a job in the Illuminati, and they were MK Ultra trainers. And their life was very interesting, that they would just be asleep and living this normal life, and they would get a phone call, and this phone call would give them their trigger word, because they'd been brainwashed and their personalities had been split. So during the rest of the time, this lady thought she was just a housewife, just a soccer mom, and her husband was just a guy that worked at the police force. He was a cop. And she said that they would get this call in the middle of the night and be given a code word where they would snap out of this false persona and become the MK Ultra Illuminati trainers that they both were. They would wake their kids up, because their kids were also in this torture program, becoming MK Ultra slaves. And they would go to an undisclosed location in a rural environment underneath these giant tents, these giant white, like FEMA tents. And I asked her if this was the United States government, and she said, no, this is above the United States government. This is the people that all the governments report to. And I struggled to understand it 11 years ago. And so anyway, she says that they would then engage in torturing other candidates, and that they themselves didn't torture their own children, other people did it. But they would torture children and young adults, and they would use this torture to split their personalities and be able then to be like them. So a code word would snap them out of their fake life and back into the reality of who they were. And that these people, some of them were there against their will, were literally kidnapped and done this to on a regular basis. So at first she was in charge of torturing, and it was her job to torture other people, and I tried to probe her heart about how that made her feel, and I could see that at one time she had no conscience, but at some point she grew one. So, it bothered her now, but she admitted that it was her job then and didn't bother her a bit, that it was part of what the big picture was. So they would train these people, and when they got them to where they could turn them on and off like that, then they would start giving them weapons training, martial arts training, firearms training, and eventually she was promoted out of torture into firearms training, and she claimed to be an expert firearms expert. And being a gun guy myself, I queried her during that 4 hours, and I believe that she was very well knowledgeable, even more knowledgeable than I am about military grade weapons. She knew a lot about automatic weapons and the various forms they come in. So at any rate, being a curious guy and being a little scared from her story, I went straight to, okay, so what is the end game? why are you training all these people? What do you intend to do with them? And she, in no uncertain terms, said, oh, they're going to overthrow every government on earth and create a one world government and take over. We've been planning it for hundreds of years. And it took a long time to build the infrastructure. And we've been training around the clock. Now, keep in mind, this was 11 years ago. She said, we've been training around the clock. She said, we may only train once or twice a month, but there's somebody training somewhere every night. And that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of MK Ultra mind control slaves who are trained assassins who live amongst ordinary people and are, in fact, completely unaware most of the time of who they really are until they're woken up. And that the way I said, well, how are they going to roll this out? You know, the American people aren't going to stand for this. What about, you know, the National Guard or the veterans? And she said, they have no idea what's coming for them. When we do this, it's going to happen so fast. And I said, well, tell me how it goes. And she said, okay, here's the plan. The plan is there will be some event or series of events that will create so much chaos in the world, so much that even the police, I said, what about the police? You know, she said, the police will stay home. She said, it will be so bad that the police will say, I did not sign up for this, and they won't go. And the ones that do go will easily be taken out by our army. And I said, well, what's going to happen? I mean, are you going to be wearing American uniforms? Is this American military? And she goes, no. She says, in the middle of this chaos, in the middle of the fog of war, when everyone thinks everything's gone completely haywire, then suddenly you'll see these forces just emerge, all dressed in black, all dressed in SWAT gear. She said they will be driving, you know, all look-alike black SUVs, and they will look and sound and act very official. And they will just simply claim that they are now in charge and everyone should do as they say. They will claim that they are part of a new government that has been established for the purpose of dealing with the said situation. And that the police would either work with them or be quickly eliminated if they didn't. And that the military is not going to get involved because they follow orders and no one's going to give them an order to get involved. That order will never come. And that they will simply transfer their allegiance from the United States Army to the new world government that will emerge. And she made it sound like it could literally happen overnight. But I think I gathered from it that it was a process that would accumulate with them taking charge at some point. Just physically showing up as the guys with the guns and the cars and the official-looking uniforms. And the whole thing was the creepiest.
All right, guys. What did you think of that? Creepy, right? The guy said in the video, I remember, he spoke about a major event that would plunge the world into chaos. Where is the world right now? Exactly where they want it. Chaos. Well, I wouldn't say complete chaos, but we're pretty much there. And another thing that I found interesting, besides all the satanic Bavarian Illuminati talk, which I'm not amazingly well versed in, but I definitely know a decent amount about it to hold, you know, a small conversation. He spoke about the New World Order soldiers who were in all black attire. That reminded me of a movie. Now, if you guys know, movies are tools for predictive programming to program the masses or the majority of the population. One of those movies was called Bushwick. And in that movie, it's a bit of a different, it's actually about a civil war, about the southern states seceding, and they attack New York. Well, Bushwick, Brooklyn, but New York in general. And the guys happen to be in all black SWAT gear. Take a look. Now, I'm pretty sure you're probably wondering, okay, you maybe got me there, right? How in the world do they plan on pulling this off? Well, to bring down a country as great as America, now, you may have debates on whether this country is great or not. Believe me, when this place falls, you will realize just how good you had it. But to bring down a place as big and as great as America, you have to destroy it through both internal and external conflicts. And it would take, as the guy said, hundreds of years. 100 years. Who knows how long they've actually had this plan to destroy America. Now, what you could do is like they've done today, is destroy the education system, corrupt the youth, destroy the family, make a sissified generation, a very, very stupid generation. I mean, just look at some of the media that we consume. Look at some of the celebrities that we exalt. Not exactly the brightest people, And, if those guys are the pinnacle of where kids want to be, that's the pinnacle. Like, I want to reach that. I want to get money and screw hoes. Well, okay, it's kind of sad, but, if you get people like that, if you get kids like that, you're screwed. There's going to be very little resistance. All right, and now that you have little resistance, you can then start perpetuating a civil war based on nonsense that this Black Lives Matter is pushing, which, believe me, they don't care about black lives. They're more shouting political jargon like eat the rich, down with capitalism, and all that stuff. When these because they want socialism in that mix, which has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. In fact, I'm pretty sure that would lead to more black deaths, and white deaths, and Asian deaths, and pretty much human. If you're a human being, you're probably going to die under the new socialism. If you thought the old one was bad, wait till the new one comes. Now, you start the Civil War, right? Which I'm pretty sure is happening. It's going to happen pretty soon. You then corrupt the groups that, let's say the right-wing groups that are going to, I guess, perpetuate that civil war. Now, I remember, what's his name? Mel Gibson, in his movie Conspiracy Theory, he said something very, very interesting. Now, you're probably thinking it's just the movie. No. They like to put truths in things like that and make it funny and, comedy, because comedy is one of the best forms of deflection. Take a look at this and listen to it and tell me what you think.
Stored below Rockefeller Center, underneath the ice skating rink. Wouldn't want to be there for the thaw. Ugh. I mean, it's disgusting. You know what they put in the water, don't you? Fluoride. Yeah, fluoride. On the pretext that it strengthens your teeth. That's ridiculous. You know what this stuff does to you? It actually weakens your will. Takes away the capacity for free and creative thought and makes you a slave to the state. So you ever wonder about all these militia groups, survivalist type kooks from the right-wing side? They say that they're defending the country from the UN troops. These guys are yelling so loud, my theory is, and this is a conspiracy, pal, that they are the UN troops and that they're in place. The infrastructure's ready, it's just a fait accompli. When the time comes, they'll just take over and we'll all be toast. Oswald, yeah.
Now, did you hear what he said? Besides the whole fluoride bit, which I do agree with, I do agree that it makes you more docile and stupid and weakens your will. So, but no. Did you hear the part about what he said, these right-wing militia groups? And I'm not saying if you're right-wing, if you're to the right, if you're a conservative, which I would consider myself much, much more on the conservative side. I'm more of a constitutionalist. I believe that we should adhere to the Constitution no matter what. But if you hear what he said, those right-wing militia groups, he said that I have a theory that they are the UN, pal, which would signify the UN is already here and that they're going to take over. Now, just a theory, I'm not going to say that this is true. What if they've been amassing this entire army, they've been training this entire army, apart from the MK Ultra soldiers, these MK Ultra foot soldiers, these assassins that have their own role to play. I guess they're more there to instigate and to destabilize the region. No, the militia are there to take control. So the MK Ultra assassins are there to destabilize, and then the militia would be there to take control. What if they've been training these militia in their underground cities that they have? And believe me, that's true. They do. Look it up. They do have underground cities. And they've been riling them up, and they've been getting these people from different nations that America has kind of, attacked and invaded. And they have every reason to hate America. And what greater cover to use than a right-wing group? Right-wing groups tend to be more conservative and more for America, more for the Constitution. And it's just a fact. And it's really the liberal left who have just been at it nonstop to destroy this country, to destabilize it. Now, I don't think for one second that these elites, this Bavarian Illuminati, they're super liberal left. I think they just use the liberal agenda to destabilize this country, to cause conflict in this country, because, the conservative ideals and liberal ideals, at least leftist ideals, for sure, do not coincide. They cannot coexist because, well, let's just be honest, leftists are they're crazy. And also, I'll throw a bone there. The guys that are on the far right, radical right, they're also freaking crazy, but that's besides the point. So they destabilize the region with liberalism. They use the MK Ultra assassins to help destabilize the region and to, I guess, act as surveillance and intelligence. And then they use these right-wing groups, or these mercenaries. Let's just call them mercenary groups. Remember that Illuminati card in the beginning of the video? Yes, they use these mercenary groups disguised as right-wing militias to then take over, which just happen to look like the blacked out uniformed guys in Bushwick. So again, these are all just food for thought. I think a lot more things are coming down the pipe. And remember Pastor Dana's video. Take heed, take that warning. All believers, understand this. There will come a time where you will be killed for your faith. This coming New World Order, it has no place for Christianity. They don't want that. They hate it. Why? Because it literally goes against everything that they stand for. They have ritual sacrifice here. We have love your neighbor like yourself here. And I'm telling you, prepare, and exactly what Pastor Dana said. Brace yourself, and endure to the end. Because I promise, very, very dark times are ahead of us.